You can't have any real Islamic faith until you completely submit to all of Muhammad's decisions. But Muhammad's decisions are spread through piles of Islamic sources. How do you submit to all of Muhammad's decisions? You do what your mullahs tell you. What do you think of that, Dr. Peterson?
Allah as interpreted by who? Totalitarian, misogynistic mullahs. How about no?
The totalitarianism and misogyny are kind of built into Islam, so you don't even need the mullahs for this.
I don't buy your Allah.
Say what now?
I don't buy your Allah.
Why buy when you can rent? Jordan Peterson has expressed a few concerns about Islam over the years. For instance, there was the time he referred to Muhammad as a warlord.
Muhammad was a warlord. And I don't know what to do about that fact.
Fortunately, Dr. Peterson has apologized for this Islamophobic statement of indisputable fact.
And you objected to my use of the term warlord, and perhaps rightly so. Perhaps that was an injudicious comment.
And he has atoned for his hurtful but obviously true claim by promoting various Muslim thinkers on his platform. His tears sing a song of true repentance. I'm happy to say that after a number of illuminating discussions with Muslims, we can finally hear a kinder, gentler, humbler, more enlightened Dr. Peterson share what he's learned about Islam.
Mullahs. How about no? I don't buy your Allah.
Well, this is awkward. You mean to tell me that after having Islam carefully explained to him by prominent Muslim thinkers, he wants nothing to do with the God who sent a warlord as his final messenger? Now I'm going to cry. But before I do, let's take a closer look at what Dr. Peterson said, because I have a feeling that he might be on to something here. Indeed, he might be ready to explain one of the most significant differences between Islam and Christianity. Dr. Peterson warned the mullahs of the world about his contempt for their God during his interview with Konstantin Kisin, co-host of the insightful and entertaining podcast Trigonometry. Konstantin is an agnostic who nevertheless thinks that religious beliefs can be useful. Dr. Peterson spends no small amount of time trying to convince him to take religion more seriously. Let's jump into the discussion with Konstantin sharing his thoughts on religion.
I believe religion is useful, right?
Heartwarming.
And I'm fond of, I can't remember who said this, but someone said that the poor believe religion is true, the middle class believes it's false, and the rich believe it's useful.
That's a modified version of a quotation often attributed to the Roman Stoic philosopher Seneca, although there's a bit of doubt as to its origin.
I'm not powerful or rich, but I certainly consider it useful, and I can see that the lack of it has its negative impact as well.
As an ex-con who became a Christian in a jail cell, I understand your perspective, Konstantin. So, you believe that religion is useful. Why don't you sign on?
I just don't wish to submit myself to a rigid ideology of that kind, combined with the fact I don't believe in the big guy in the sky.
Konstantin gives two reasons. One, he doesn't want to submit to some sort of rigid religious ideology. And two, he just doesn't believe in God. So there's a matter of the will. He doesn't want to have to follow some list of rules. And there's a matter of the intellect. How could he convert to something when he doesn't believe it's true? A very interesting question is, to what extent are those two matters connected? In other words, how much does the fact that you don't want to submit to something affect whether you believe it's true? But that'll have to wait for another time. For this part of the interview, notice that Konstantin says he doesn't want to submit. As many of you know, the word Islam means submission. Submission is the defining characteristic of Islam. Watch where they go with this.
Okay, so let's not make it, okay, so let's agree that you shouldn't subordinate yourself arbitrarily to a rigid structure.
Don't submit arbitrarily to some rigid ideology. Agreed.
You might want to do that sporadically to discipline yourself. Right? But the object shouldn't be submission.
Deliberate, temporary submission to a rigid ideology can help build discipline and self-control. But the goal shouldn't be submission. Again, submission is the defining central characteristic of Islam. But aren't all Abrahamic faiths like that, Dr. Peterson?
Now, what's weird in the biblical narrative, is that the goal is not submission. It's so weird. It's covenantal relationship.
Covenantal relationship? Really? Not blind submission?
And covenantal relationship is actually relationship. So one of the things you see with Moses, for example, and you also see this with Abraham, is that they're constantly negotiating with God.
Jordan Peterson is right. The biblical prophets had a relationship with God.
It's a negotiation. It's not a submission.
He's really emphasizing that this isn't submission.
God is always threatening to wipe out the Israelites in the desert. He's just sick and tired of their idol worship and their whiny resentment and their bitterness and their worship of the past tyranny.
Well, that kind of makes it sound like he's demanding submission.
And he's constantly threatening just to wipe them out and start again.
Stop whining so much or I'll wipe you out and start over. Sounds like a call for submission.
And Moses is constantly interceding on their behalf and telling God he shouldn't break his word. And the odd thing in the story is that God actually listens, which is rather preposterous.
Dr. Peterson says it's preposterous for God to listen to Moses. But God listening to Moses is what shows that there's a relationship involved, not simply blind submission.
But the reason that's happening is to mitigate against exactly the problem that you described, which is to have the relationship with the transcendent degenerate into nothing but a blind obedience.
So it's weird to think of God, the transcendent, as actually listening to human beings, but that's what's needed in order to avoid the blind obedience that Constantine doesn't like. Now for the elephant in the room. If submission and blind obedience are a problem...
And then the danger of that is, well, a blind obedience to who?
We're not all prophets. So if we don't have a relationship with God, and we're just going to submit, someone's going to tell us whom to submit to, right?
And I see this as a threat in Islam, in the more fundamentalist forms of Islam. It's like, well, you should submit to Allah. It's like, hey, fair enough. Allah as interpreted by who?
Allah demands submission. But how do we submit to Allah? The Quran tells us we submit to Allah by mindlessly obeying all of Muhammad's decisions. In Surah 4, verse 65 of the Quran, Allah declares, "But know, by your Lord, they can have no faith until they make you, O Muhammad, judge in all disputes between them, and find in themselves no resistance against your decisions, and accept them with full submission." You can't have any real Islamic faith until you completely submit to all of Muhammad's decisions. But Muhammad's decisions are spread through piles of Islamic sources. How do you submit to all of Muhammad's decisions? You do what your mullahs tell you. What do you think of that, Dr. Peterson?
Allah as interpreted by who? Oh, totalitarian, misogynistic mullahs. How about no?
The totalitarianism and misogyny are kind of built into Islam, so you don't even need the mullahs for this.
Totalitarian, misogynistic mullahs. How about no? I don't buy your Allah.
Say what now?
I don't buy your Allah.
Why buy when you can rent?
I don't buy your Allah. And
Well,
I don't
why?
see who made you the right, precisely.
And even if
Okay,
I
so that's a
believed
big
in the
problem.
bearded guy in the sky, I'm not sure I need a middleman to talk to him.
So, Dr. Peterson and Constantine agree that there's a problem in Islam. Islam requires submission to Allah. How do you submit to Allah? You submit to Allah by obeying Muhammad. How do you obey Muhammad? The mullahs tell you how to obey Muhammad. Constantine says he doesn't see why he would need a middleman, and then Dr. Peterson tells him what that suggests about his personality.
I'm not sure I need a middleman to talk to him, right?
Well, that makes you a good Protestant. You know?
The discussion goes on for a while. Following his remark about Constantine being a good Protestant, Dr. Peterson breaks down the dangers associated with the Catholic mindset and the Protestant mindset. If you have a priest or a church as a mediator between you and God, the danger is that the priest or the church can lead to a kind of authoritarian rigidity. Protestants rebelled against that system, but there's a danger here as well. The danger of not having a middleman as an authority is that each person can become his own church. We can become too individualistic, and Dr. Peterson connects that to some of the problems we're facing in the West, where certain individuals are now convinced that any thought or feeling they have is somehow binding on everyone else, as if their thoughts and feelings are infallible and authoritative. Fun stuff. So, no matter which approach you go with, things can go off the rails very quickly. But the main takeaway of this part of the interview was the difference between Islam on the one hand and Judaism and Christianity on the other. Islam means submission, and at the end of the day, that's all it is. There are definitely passages in the Bible where God demands submission, but what you find is different kinds of language that describe different features of a relationship with God. There are passages where God is our Lord and Master, and we're His servants. There are passages where God is our King, and we are His subjects. There are passages where God is our Father, and we are His children. There are even passages where God is the husband, or Christ is the husband, and the nation of Israel, or the church, is the bride. So you have a multifaceted relationship with God. In Islam, there's only one relationship. Surah 19, verse 93 of the Quran says that the only relationship we can have with Allah is a slave-to-master relationship. You can be a good slave, in which case Allah will reward you, or you can be a bad slave, in which case Allah will punish you. But that's all you will ever be to Allah, a slave. So, let's stop pretending that all religions teach the same thing. If Jordan Peterson and Konstantin Kisin can spot such a glaring difference between Christianity and Islam, why can't you atheists in the comments section get the point?